This presentation is designed to inform the Loudoun County School Board's consideration of a proposal for a charter school known as the Loudoun Math and Information Technology Academy, or LMITA. For the reasons we'll discuss, however, it has relevance far beyond that Virginia suburb of Washington, D.C. The question before the Loudoun County School Board is whether to approve the LMITA application for public financing as a charter school. The decisions should turn on answers to two important questions. First, are the applicants being transparent? And if not, is the information being withheld of a character that should compel the rejection of this application? The applicants have made several representations concerning their association's model and purpose that demand close scrutiny. Readily available evidence suggests that these assurances are inaccurate. It behooves the school board not to accept them at face value, despite political pressure from some quarters or any other inducements to do so. The trouble is that there is a well-established pattern at work here that has contributed to the ill-advised approval of some 135 schools like LMITA by school boards around the country. What are the hallmarks of this pattern? The most important is an undisclosed and adamantly denied tie to a problematic individual named Two Gulen. In case after case, individuals who are, in fact, Gulen's followers present themselves as nothing more than ordinary parents seeking to establish, with taxpayer funding, a charter school to meet their children's need for enriched educational experiences. Typically, they propose to have the schools specialize in subjects known collectively as STEM. This priority not only tracks with the focus of Fethullah Gulen's Islamist cult, it also helps suppress opposition to the application. After all, most communities are reflexively receptive to the need to equip students with such skills to ensure their future competitiveness. The applicants also claim they will model their schools on others that purportedly are academic successes. One more clue about the true character of the proposed charter schools is that the models they cite are schools associated with, or, as the Gulenists say, are inspired by, Fethullah Gulen and the movement he calls Hizmet, or service in Turkish. The school board needs to understand the nature of the spiritual leader and driving force behind the Gulen school empire, which, in addition to its schools in the United States, includes roughly 1,000 more overseas in some 140 countries. Fethullah Gulen is often described as the Turkish counterpart to Iran's Ayatollah Khomeini. Thanks to his prominence, business empire, wealth, and followers, Gulen is one of the most influential figures in contemporary Turkey. Gulen's extensive business operations and resources are also put to the service of promoting Turkish nationalism and Islamic supremacism well beyond Turkey's borders. In the words of the highly regarded Istanbul-based American journalist Claire Berlinski, quote, Gulen is, among other things, a major player in the world of American charter schools. Though he claims to have no power over them, they're just greatly inspired, he says, unquote. Interestingly, the Department of Homeland Security found Gulen was unqualified to cast himself as an educator and unsuccessfully sought his deportation. In the course of the legal maneuvering over his deportation, Fethullah Gulen's legal team stipulated he is indeed the founder and head of an international movement with, quote, a conglomeration of schools throughout the world, unquote, including the United States. Subsequent denials and obfuscations by him and his followers should be seen for what they are, lies in the service of his faith, which are obligatory under the doctrine of Sharia and called, in Arabic, taqiyya. A prime example of the lengths to which the Gulen movement goes to conceal the true nature of its educational conglomerate can be found in this implausible assertion by an unnamed member of its senior leadership cited in an article published in May 2012 by the Atlantic Monthly. Fethullah Gulen's goals and modus operandi appear aligned with those of another secretive international organization that, like Gulen's, adheres to the Islamic doctrine known as Sharia and seeks to impose it worldwide, namely the Muslim Brotherhood. They both seek to accomplish this objective by stealth in what the Brotherhood calls civilization jihad, and Gulen's movement describes as jihad of the word. A providential insight into the nature of such seemingly nonviolent jihadist operations in the United States occurred when a senior brother, Ismail El-Barassa, was caught in 2004 photographing the structural supports of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. That resulted in a search of his home in Annandale, Virginia, which led to the discovery there of the hidden archives of the Muslim Brotherhood in America. A sort of Rosetta Stone concerning the stealthy subversion in which those like the Muslim Brotherhood and Fethullah Gulen engage in here in the United States can be found in a Brotherhood strategic plan that was written in 1991 and among the documents found in the El-Barassa home. The author, a top brother in this country named Muhammad Akram, declared that his group's purpose in our country is, quote, destroying Western civilization from within, unquote, by our own hands and the hands of Sharia's adherents. In 2010, a blue-ribbon group of national security, intelligence, and other experts known as Team B2 established in their acclaimed book, Sharia, The Threat to America, that civilization jihad involves the use of various techniques to penetrate and subvert civil society and governmental institutions in order to achieve the objective of subverting us from within and by our own hands. One of these is utilizing educational vehicles for the purpose of proselytizing, recruiting, and indoctrinating the young people of the targeted nation. Fethullah Gulen has been very careful to conceal his true purposes and those of the Hizmet operations, including, notably, dormitories he calls houses of light, used as adjuncts to his schools. In an unguarded moment in 1999, however, he gave a speech broadcast on Turkish television in which he called on his followers to exercise, quote, the patience of a spider, unquote. He also underscored the seditious purpose to which such patience is supposed to be applied. Gulen also addressed in his 1999 speech the central role he assigned to religious proselytization in his educational houses of light. Fethullah Gulen and his movement are deeply imbued with Turkish nationalism. His schools rely on large numbers of teachers imported from Turkey to promote its supremacy, and, at least implicitly, that of its Islamic faith, through language studies, cultural events, and other, more subtle forms of indoctrination. The Gulen movement's emphasis on science enables it to attract, recruit, and indoctrinate America's most promising students. As part of what Fethullah Gulen himself has described as a patient, long-term program, the potential over time for extensive penetration and subversion of key federal agencies from within, by our own hands, cannot be ignored. As Harvard professor Danny Roderick put it in a German publication in June 2012, quote, the Gulen movement has played a pernicious role in recent Turkish political developments. As key allies of the AKP government early on, they helped Erdogan solidify his power. They have been the key force behind the absurd political military trials underway, where the evidence ranges from the circumstantial to the patently forged. Now that the ultra-secularist old guard stands defeated, the new axis of Turkish politics revolves around the power struggle between Erdogan and the Gulenists. Unfortunately, regardless of who eventually triumphs, it will not be good news for democracy, unquote. On December 10, 2012, the Loudoun County School Board received an important warning in the form of a letter from Mary Addy, a former teacher at a Gulen school in Cleveland. Ms. Addy's husband, Mustafa Eminet, is a Turk who was also formerly employed by the school. They make clear, among other things, the true Islamist and Turkish supremacist character of the Gulen agenda and educational enterprises. This background means that evidence of connections to the Gulen movement on the part of charter school applicants, and Efforts by those applicants to deny such associations should be viewed with great concern by elected and other officials entrusted with the public school systems of counties like Loudoun. The analysis that follows was prepared by Kent Clisby, a longtime resident of Ashburn in Loudoun County. Clisby is an experienced CIA intelligence operations officer no longer in service. He worked successfully against Islamic terrorist organizations in the Middle East, Asia, and Africa. He is intimately familiar with the methodology of Islamic extremist groups. As a convert to Islam after his marriage to a Malaysian, Clisby has lived and worked with and among Muslims around the world, and is an expert in Islamic cultures of many regions. Mr. Clisby's analysis focuses on two of the LMITA applicants, Fatih Kandil and Ali Bichak, and their associates and institutions with which they have worked. Until 2005, Fatih Kandil was the director of the Horizon Science Academy in Dayton, Ohio. The Horizon organization runs several Turkish-dominated public charter schools in Ohio. Horizon, in turn, is connected to and leases its building from a non-profit group in Chicago, the Niagara Foundation. Niagara Foundation is a Gulen-influenced group, which is evidenced by its listing of Fethullah Gulen as its honorary president. In addition to his leadership role at the Horizon Science Academy, Kandil worked in at least 3 other Turkish-dominated public charter schools, the Wisconsin Career Academy in Milwaukee, the Baltimore Information Technology Academy in Maryland, and the Chesapeake Science Point Charter School in Hanover, Maryland. In addition, he was one of the applicants for yet another such school, the First State Math and Science Academy, which was intended to operate in Delaware before its application was denied. Now, Kandil wants to open the Loudoun Math and IT Academy in Virginia. Another link to Gulen comes through the Maryland-based Chesapeake Lighthouse Foundation, what appears to be a holding company-type organization. It operates 3 public charter schools in Maryland, including the Chesapeake Science Point Academy, where Kandil served as principal from 2006 to 2011. Chesapeake Science Point is described by the LMITA applicants as the model for their proposed school in Loudoun County. The Chesapeake Lighthouse Foundation also runs the Baltimore IT Academy, where Fatih Kandil was the principal from 2010 to 2011, and the Chesapeake Math and IT Academy. Ali Bichak, another applicant, along with Kandil, for the proposed Loudoun Math and IT Academy, is the board president of the Chesapeake Lighthouse Foundation and a founding member of Chesapeake Science Point Academy. Bichak introduced Kandil as the new principal of the Baltimore IT Academy in a letter to parents in April 2012. Another Gulenist connection is Ben Bunyamin Karadaman, the president and CEO of Chesapeake Lighthouse Foundation. He was, together with Fatih Kandil, an applicant for the charter school in Delaware dubbed the First State Math and Science Academy, for which he was proposed to be the executive director. The application was denied in 2011. Karadaman was a director for another of the Lighthouse's schools, the Baltimore IT Academy, where Kandil served as principal. Karadaman's special assistant at Chesapeake Lighthouse Foundation is Alishar Anvarov. Immediately prior to working with Karadaman, Anvarov was an assistant program director at the Turkic-American Alliance of Washington, D.C. TAA is an umbrella group of nationwide organizations of Turkic ethnic societies, mostly representing former Soviet states that had previously been part of the Ottoman Empire. The group promotes the Gulen agenda and includes the Rumi Forum. Both TAA and Rumi acknowledge their direct ties to Gulen in their promotional materials and their websites. The intricate and extensive connections between some of the LMITA applicants and board members with the Gulen enterprise is indicative of both the true Gulenist character of the charter school proposed for Loudoun, its ties to other parts of the movement's infrastructure, and the necessity for not taking at face value efforts to obscure and deny these associations. As mentioned previously, the school the LMITA applicants cite as their model is the Chesapeake Science Point Public Charter School, or CSP, in Anne Arundel County, Maryland. It is, however, an example no one should want a Loudoun County school to emulate. The following presentation reflects the research and analysis of Rachel Sargent, a resident of Loudoun County who has taught in its public school system and those of 2 other Virginia counties. In addition, she worked for years on the staff of a Loudoun County supervisor. She is deeply committed to quality public education and is herself the product of a public STEM education in New York. Mrs. Sargent is the daughter of immigrants to the United States and has a school-aged child of her own. A seeming showstopper for the LMITA application is the fact that the model they pledge to emulate, the Chesapeake Science Point Academy, has not exactly proven to be an academic success. Notably, it does not appear anywhere in the acclaimed U.S. News and World Report lists of high-performing schools in Maryland, let alone nationwide. CSP has not been recognized either among the much smaller number of charter and STEM schools at the national, state, or county level. By contrast, Thomas Jefferson High School, a Virginia public school in Loudoun's neighboring Fairfax County, has repeatedly been cited as an example of outstanding STEM education. As a teacher, Rachel Sargent understands the importance of a well-prepared curriculum and what is entailed in producing it, in training teachers to teach it, and in maintaining quality control over time. The initial assessment of the county school system professionals does not inspire confidence in the applicant's attitude towards the LMITA curriculum, and such doubts have only been reinforced by their clearly unsatisfactory responses to questions posed by 3 board members just days before they were to provide a recommendation on whether this application should be approved. Moreover, LMITA's champions neglect to acknowledge, let alone take responsibility for, myriad problems their designated model has had in areas besides its academic performance over the past 6 years. These problems have been a real burden on the management and budget of the Anne Arundel public school system and a liability for that county's taxpayers. Chesapeake Science Point is hardly the only Gulen school to experience problems with their finances and other business and management practices. A formal audit in Fulton County, Georgia, uncovered several, including improperly awarded contracts to Gulen-associated businesses and groups. The Georgia schools have also floated bonds, ostensibly to finance construction, operations, and other purposes. Reportedly, however, at least some of the proceeds of these bonds have gone to Turkey. The New York Times reported, moreover, that such problematic bonds are a feature of Gulen operations elsewhere and are, for example, the subject of investigations in Texas. The Loudoun County School Board is on notice. As with other aspects of the problematic Gulen pattern, there is reason to believe LMITA, if approved, will run into financial difficulties. Can the public school budget and county taxpayers afford to run such a risk? Another problematic hallmark of Gulen schools is their questionable practice of importing large numbers of Turkish teachers to teach subjects for which large numbers of unemployed American educators would be eligible. Why would Loudoun County want to encourage such a practice? That is especially so in light of the fact that among the investigations of Fethullah Gulen's operations, including reportedly by the FBI, are federal inquiries into 16 Gulen schools in Ohio concerning immigration fraud, a crime confirmed by state auditors, and mandatory kickbacks imposed on Gulen school employees. Former Gulen teacher Mustafa Eminet has revealed he was subjected to this practice and is cooperating with federal investigators. Does Loudoun County want in the future to risk being embroiled in similar controversies and investigations? If all this were not bad enough, in a March 2012 analysis of Gulen charter schools, the Washington Post identified still more examples of liabilities associated with having such institutions in American public school systems. Given what is coming to light concerning the unsatisfactory track records of more and more Gulen movement schools across America, it's only prudent to assume that the problems they are experiencing and inflicting on the school systems that have been induced to fund them will manifest themselves in Loudoun County as well, should its school board approve the LMITA application. While there is rising opposition to Gulen schools across the country, and greater accountability is being demanded of them, Loudoun County School Board members should be under no illusion. Deauthorizing one of these charter schools is difficult. That is especially true insofar as the Gulen movement, its followers, and associated businesses have cultivated powerful allies among national, state, and local political elites. Campaign and other contributions, all expenses paid trips to Turkey, and political endorsements make it difficult to remediate or terminate these schools once they are established and begin exhibiting problematic behavior. A respected American academic, Professor Donny Roderick of Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, with first-hand knowledge of Turkey and the Gulenists, has warned, quote, "If we accuse the Gulen movement, it is not because we are prejudiced, but because of the facts," unquote. And the facts must guide the Loudoun County School Board's decision with respect to LMITA. Knowing what is contained in this briefing, the school board has to protect the students in its charge and the taxpayers of Loudoun County from the predictable consequences of establishing a Gulen-linked charter school at public expense. There are other, and clearly better ways to address any need for expanding STEM education in the county public school system, and they should be thoughtfully addressed once the LMITA application has been rejected. Fortunately, that is precisely what the school board's code of conduct requires.